Hi, Elle Ingalls here, and on this training, we're going to go deeply into pressure-free leadership. How can you really step into being the leader you know you were always meant to be without sacrificing your health, without sacrificing relationships, both in the workplace and at home? So I'm going to bring up some slides here for you for my presentation. And let's see, share my screen. Boom. Share my keynote. And let's get started together. By now, we've had a few days together. Hopefully, you've read a little bit about me, know a little bit about me. Pressure-free leadership is what we're going to concentrate on today. And I come to this subject as a former CEO of a nonprofit. I'm the CEO of my own company. I'm the board chair for my son's company. I've been in leadership roles since I was small, quite small. I played in an adult string quartet when I was 12. So I've always been a leader going into spaces where some people hadn't gone before. So I was the first woman ever admitted to the conducting program, orchestral conducting program at the University of Michigan, which is a very competitive program. So broke a glass ceiling there. Also was in an MBA program when very few women even thought about getting an MBA, and did that in the 80s as well. So I've been in situations and experienced the ups and downs of leadership, the tough decisions that have to be made, the hiring and the firing, the strategic planning, the working with a board, bringing everyone together into vision. And I've had rough patches too. In fact, I went through a really rough patch. In a way, well, I always try to do too much. Maybe you're this way too, because I attract high achievers. We were celebrating the 100th anniversary of the Battle Creek Symphony, which was the symphony that I was the CEO of. And at the same time, we were launching a program to merge organizations and create the Music Center of South Central Michigan, a real powerhouse organization. But when you're trying to merge nonprofits who have been in their silos for a while, it can be very challenging. During that process, I got really sick. I got so sick, and I kept trying to get myself better, like eating broth, fruit and vegetables, just eating everything healthy, trying to get myself healthy. And but it wasn't working. And when I finally went in to see our family physician, I stood on the scale, and normally at that point in time in my life, I weighed between 138 and 143 and 5'9". And I weighed 117 pounds, which was what I weighed in 7th grade. So that was a really, really scary moment for me, because here I had 2 sons at the time, young sons, married with a beautiful husband, running this whole show, and feeling like I was maybe just going to disappear. I got myself out of it, obviously. And then in 2010, I really got myself out of it. That's when I created this pressure-free method. And initially, I thought I would just be helping people to perform at a higher level, but it's so much more. And that's what I want to share with you today. I had no idea how stress was expressing within my body and within my being and within my leadership. That's what I want to uncover with you today. I want to show you how to achieve even more, because my guess is you're a high achiever if you're watching this, without sacrificing your health or your relationships. I want you to remember me. So I do this funny thing where I am the illegally blonde. This is white hair. I'm 60. It's one syllable, Elle, just like Elle Woods in the Legally Blonde movie. So years from now, if you're thinking, oh, who is that woman? I saw her webinar, I saw her training. It is me, the illegally blonde Elle. And yes, my husband is distantly related to Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls, and that is how you spell the name. So you can make sure you always know how to spell it by just looking up Little House in the Big Woods or Little House on the Prairie. What you'll discover with me is the root cause of underperformance, how to recognize the stress response and identify what causes it in you and others, and then a simple method to instantly uplevel your performance. The root cause of all underperformance is the stress response. The stress response is your body's natural mechanism to muster that energy to escape an attack. It's your defense mechanism. But most of us today are not under attack, and saber-tooth tigers are extinct. We've become really good at overreacting. We overreact to people, to situations, to memories, to traumas of our past, and we continually loop into these overreactions. And that is what's causing us to continually trigger the fight or flight stress hormones. So I do a lot of talk about hormones, and you're going to learn a lot today. On this slide, what you're going to learn is what most medical professionals, including mental health professionals, don't know. I've gone really deep on fight or flight, on the fight or flight stress response. And this slide here is just the little opening to give you a little idea of just what is really happening when you go into fight or flight. There are two different floods of hormones. We're going to start on the far left-hand side of your screen, effects of the stress response. And you'll see the word catecholamine. So when you go into fight or flight, there's a mechanism in your brain that has you be very alert. And then if you really feel there's a threat of any kind, you're going to trigger the fight or flight stress response. Your amygdala in your brain's going to fire. It's going to tell your heart rate to charge up. And those little adrenal glands, those little brown glands, my husband created this graphic for, they're going to release a flood of hormones. I call it a cocktail. They're called catecholamines. Adrenaline is the big one, but it really is a cocktail with all sorts of side effects, all sorts of purposeful effects if you're really under attack, but then a lot of side effects too. These are just a few of them. You may feel a lack of focus. You might have impaired judgment because your outer cortex is going to shut down. You're not going to be able to remember names very well. If you're introduced to someone, you're going to have trouble remembering your statistics if you're giving a talk. You're going to have difficulty making decisions. Also, willpower is shut down. There's two areas in the brain for willpower. Those are shut down too, which is why you may turn to binging. You might binge eat or drink or smoke. It's because you have no willpower when you're in fight or flight. Your memory is, we could do an entire hour-long session just on memory, but if you're feeling like you're having some memory issues, it could be a stress release issue. In fact, if you look at all of these side effects, you might have these issues and you're thinking, oh, it's a thyroid issue, it's a heart issue. The bottom line for all chronic mental and physical disease are the release of these is the release of these stress hormones and their effects on you. So when you trigger fight or flight, you're basically compromising every cell of your body. So your face might turn red, or it looks like you're going to faint. You might not hear very well. This is so critical for leadership because most people, if you interview them and you ask them, what do you wish your boss would do differently? I wish my boss could hear me, would really hear me, could really see me. I wish I was more appreciated. Those three things I hear all the time from my clients. I wish I was more appreciated. I wish I was seen. I wish I was heard, not just by the leader of their company, but also by the people they live with, everyone around them, because pretty much everyone is under the influence of these stress hormones. So we're not really seeing each other. We're not really hearing each other. So how can we even begin to appreciate each other if our sensory abilities to really take another human in are shut down? You might feel really uncoordinated, trembling, pen clickers, that's this nervous energy is going on. So there's tremoring going on. You might get twitching in your eye or around your mouth. People sweat, perspiration. Your hands might be sweaty, your pits, your forehead. You're visibly sweating, which can be very really take you out of your game if you're giving a presentation and you feel that you're sweating. You might have to go to the bathroom a lot. Your sphincter and bladder muscles are going to contract, and there's going to be this feeling like you have to go, even if you just went 20 minutes before. So that's a real issue for a lot of people, people when they travel as well, if you travel for your leadership work. Your digestive system is going to slow down or stop. So that can really mess with you. Pretty much all IBS, anything going on digestively, ulcers, etc. are directly caused by the release of these stress hormones. Your reproductive system is going to shut down also somewhat, and your libido is going to drop. So those are some of the, not all, but some of the things that happen in fight or flight. Then what happens hours later when your body and mind say, okay, this threat is gone, there's no reason to fight or run away anymore, a second flood of hormones goes out called glucocorticoids, glucose and cortisol. In both of these floods of hormones, you've dropped sugar into your bloodstream, which is one of the reasons we have such a type 2 diabetes crisis today in our society. We're dropping too much sugar in our bloodstream that has nothing to do with food. It's because we're overreacting to situations and people. Insomnia and negative thoughts, two things that haven't happened to the brain when these glucocorticoids go out, because cortisol is a little wake-up drug. You release it just the right amount every morning to wake you up. But when you're out of rhythm, when you've triggered the stress response, that cortisol is going to hit your brain and wake you up, which is why you might have trouble getting to sleep, or you do get to sleep, but at 2 or 3 a.m., you're wide awake. That's because there's a cortisol drip that's hit your, it's gone into your bloodstream, it's gone right to your brain, and it's going to do that to you. It can also make you feel anxious for no reason. So that's why you'll start to go into those worrying thoughts as well. Both of these floods of hormones do a tremendous amount of brain neuron damage. If you want a healthy brain, the fastest way is to not trigger the stress response. Blood pressure goes up, and again in both floods, but even in this second flood, the blood pressure goes up. We're depositing a lot of fat in our arteries and in our abdomens, which is why you have stress fat in your torso that's really hard to get rid of. Of course, the blood sugar imbalance that I mentioned, your thyroid gland is going to get really confused because it has to actually suppress a little bit for all this hormonal activity to take place. So meanwhile, in fact, if you have cold hands and cold feet, that can be, people say, oh, you have a thyroid issue. You have a stress response issue because that's what's causing your thyroid to mess up. Lower immunity, so your immune system drops in both of these floods of hormones quite significantly. Slowed healing. I've helped so many people recover faster from surgery and injury just by showing them how to not trigger the fight or flight stress response. And then muscle and bone loss. So if you do work out, trying to keep yourself healthy, when you release these hormones, it actually draws from your muscles and bones. So you'll get a bigger bang for your buck if you don't trigger the stress response in your workouts. I show my athletes how to get in the sweet spot of their zone, the sweet spot of their athletic heart rate where they haven't triggered too much adrenaline. That way you won't hit the wall too. Here's a little bonus secret for you. It takes males up to 9 hours to clear stress hormones out of their cells, but it takes females up to 24 hours. So from the time you first trigger the stress response until all of your cells are finally clear of these 2 floods of hormones is hours. During that time, you're compromised. Your mental ability and your physical ability is significantly compromised. So what happens when we don't trigger that, right? Part 2, how to recognize the stress response and identify what causes it in you and in others. As a leader, after this presentation, you're going to be able to see in others whether or not they've triggered fight or flight. You're going to see why people act the way they do, have an understanding of their behaviors, and you'll be able to be a beacon, if you will, or a solid rock as you start working on this yourself and use the tools that I'm going to share with you, so that you don't overreact in situations. And just you making that change alone is going to start to create a ripple effect in your organization and in your home life. So we're going to dive deeply into how you can start to recognize this for you and for others. Ask yourself first, what does stress do to you and to your team members? Here's how you can get to that. Where do you feel tension? Is it in the back of your neck? It is in your abdominal region? Are your hands tight? Are your feet tight? Is your jaw tight? Do you go like this a lot? Do you have the 11 line between your eyes because you're in tension so much with your face? Where do you feel tension? What do you feel emotionally? So what do you notice when you're stressed? What kind of emotions are going through you? Do you get aggressive? Are you upset? Do you argue a lot? Do you bicker? Like, what's really going on emotionally for you? Do you shut down? Do you feel broken? What hurts or feels strange? So some people will feel a tightness in their throat. It's hard to breathe. They may have asthma or feel they have asthma because it's hard to breathe. Their heart rate is racing. You can feel it in your chest. Some people, it's the gut. Their gut hurts. Their stomach hurts. They feel nauseous. Maybe it's that bladder sphincter thing. Or it's the head. You get headaches, migraines, jaw tension, TMJ, something going on up in here. So what hurts or feels strange in you when you're stressed? How do you behave? We're going to get deeper into this, but how do you behave? If you can figure that one out and trace it to something, that will be really powerful for you. Acknowledgement will set you free. What do others say about you when you're stressed? I was working with a woman who said it really bothers her when she hears through the grapevine that someone has said, "You're so hormonal." So that's not a word people want to hear very often. Or they have such a short temper. What do people say about you? It's sometimes really harsh to hear it, get the feedback, but if you're open to it and you can acknowledge it, again, that can set you free because I'm going to share with you a way that your behavior can radically change into a different, more optimal way. Last, do you have chronic mental or physical issues? Do you have medications you need to take on a regular basis? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression? Do you have general anxiety disorder? Do you have any sort of disorder, PTSD, OCD, anything that you've been diagnosed with mentally? And then physical issues. Do you have diabetes? Do you have heart disease? Do you have ulcers, chronic issues? Do you have skin issues, psoriasis, eczema, acne? So get really clear about what you actually have going down in your body and in your mind. Again, when you can acknowledge that, yeah, I really have an issue with that. I was in denial until 2010 when I created my method. And even then, I was using my method, coaching it to others. And I'm like, I really have to use it myself, like transform myself. And that's when some pretty amazing things happened for me. We've created a stress culture, so you're not alone. We're not alone in this. These are 2018 stats. I've got to update them, but I actually don't want to because I don't even want to see what the 2020, 2021 stats are going to be here. This is before COVID. Look at these numbers. And this is when there was still a really big mental health stigma. So these are the people who have actually been diagnosed. Think of all those who never even got a diagnosis. And to have a quarter of our children between the ages of 13 and 18 with anxiety disorders, this is a very big issue. And now, as we know, it's only gotten worse. So part 3 here, the pressure-free method. I'm going to give you some tools that will instantly improve your productivity, your job performance, so that you don't underperform anymore. And you can share this with your team so they don't. It will help you stay calmer, healthier, and happier. And you'll feel truly empowered so that you can really succeed in what you want to do. I'm going to start with something kind of fun here to kickstart your success. I have a private body coach, Leila Veronica. She was the first person on my leadership series, my first person I had up with you. And I'm just going to teach you a couple things here to help you show up bigger. Because my guess is, even if you show up pretty big, there's still more in you. You're showing up in ways that might actually be repelling your people that you want to sell to, you people that you want to have connection with. So the first step is to go wide with your heart. So if you imagine your shoulders down into your hips, just going like really wide out to the walls so that you're taking up in 3-dimension all the space around your heart. Give your heart some space. When you open up this way, it can feel a little vulnerable because you just opened up your heart. But when you open up your heart and take it a step further and now relax your abs, you've now opened up this space to create connection with another human. They're going to feel that you can see them and hear them when your body is receptive to them, and the heart is the key. Hamstrings. So sit up a little, grab your butt, and pull it back so that you're sitting on your hamstrings or your leg bones, not your butt. Your glute muscles are supposed to be supporting your lower back. If you have lower back issues, this will be huge for you. You want to be sitting on your hamstrings, and your butt muscles are also propelling you forward. So now you're going to look more in action mode. If you're sitting here and you've got yourself in that position, people are going to feel your energy. Next one is your head. Every once in a while, just look up and out to the horizon. I have a beautiful view here. So I'm looking out at my beautiful view. If you're in a cubicle, put up a cool poster, like get your head up now and then, because we're down on our phones and our computers and we're down in a tight place. I want you to get up. How are you showing up? So I want you to ask yourself that question really honestly. Are you showing up wide and soft in the front? By the way, when you relax your abs, you'll also relax your throat, and people will feel more connection to you that way too. Are you more in your hamstrings? Is your head up? How are you showing up? So this method has 3 simple steps: targets, triggers, tools. Those last things I just showed you are little body tools. When you get into this frame, you actually tell your brain that you're okay. There's no reason for you to trigger the stress response if you're soft in the front of your body. So we're going to do targets, triggers, tools here for you. The only way to stop stress from messing with you is to stop the stress cycle. This pressure-free method is going to show you how. Step 1, targets. This is your why. Why is this important to you? Maybe you have performance targets or some health reasons, or maybe you want to improve relationships. So performance targets can be your salary, your revenue, how much money you're bringing in, how much money you're saving, promotions, knowledge, skills, any pursuit that you have that you want to perform at a bit higher level, a better level. Health targets can be less illness, faster healing from surgery or injury, better sleep. I have so many clients that say to me, I just need to sleep better, Al. So better sleep, more energy, better athletic performance if you're an athlete, less chronic disease, better skin. I have to put that one down because that was a huge one for me. Huge steps for me were better skin and less stress fat. So if stress fat's an issue for you too, that could be a health target. Relationship targets: better friendships, less loneliness, fewer misunderstandings, improved work environments, closer to family. When I ask my clients, how do you feel after they start working with this pressure-free method and they start using the tools that I'm going to share with you in a moment, they say, I feel calmer. I feel more confident. I feel courageous. Some of them will say, like, I just feel more committed to my family, to my work. And then this last one, I'm working with a fellow right now, and he says, this is the one I want. I want to feel more congruent. The inside and outside are matching. You don't have to fake it till you make it. You don't have to faith it till you make it. You actually feel authentic inside out. It's real. You find, and some of my clients say this, I found the real me, not the stressed out me. That's not the real you. Or your teammate who's really stressed out, that's not the real them. The real you is in there though. We just have to stop triggering the stress response to really find them. These are other words my clients have used too. They feel more energized, exhilarated, empowered, enlightened, enthusiastic, extraordinary. In this particular session, I'm really aiming to have you feel more enlightened about your body and your mind, and that you can start opening up to some real possibility. Step 2 of the pressure-free method are triggers. Your what? What makes you feel these emotions? And a few more, but angry, anxious, annoyed, or ashamed. Fight or flight, the stress response, causes us to want to do this. We want to either fight, we want to flee, run away, we're in flight, or you'll freeze and you'll feel very unfocused and unable to make decisions. Some people fib. They will say a little white lie because they're just trying to cover their butt. If you, as a leader, you may ask one of your team members, so is that report done? The due date's tomorrow. And they haven't even started it, but they'll say, oh yeah, it's almost done, because they don't want you to know they haven't even started it. So there'll be all this little fibbing going on when there's a stressed environment, because people are afraid that if you really knew what was going on, they might get fired. And then fawning. Fawning is over flattering. Oh, I just love that sweater you're wearing. Or some sort of just over the top expression coming out. That's usually someone who's experienced some childhood trauma and they just really want to belong to the tribe. They've always kind of felt like they just didn't belong. Some people just feel like misfit toys. My colleague and I say that all the time. We're just a bunch of misfit toys on this planet, just looking to belong somehow. So fawning will be a sign that someone needs to feel that they belong. So here are those A emotions. What ones do you tend to have a situation with? So do you get angry? Do you get annoyed? That's my big one. Do you get anxious? Are you afraid of some things? What do you argue about? Are you argumentative? And what do you feel ashamed about? We move into these B behaviors when we've triggered the fight or flight stress response. You could get really, the B word, snippy, impatient, snap at people. You might be really bossy, even bully people, and you might not be aware of it because when you're in fight or flight, everything can feel like a threat and you're just projecting, you're protecting yourself. Blaming. So you'll finger point. If you have someone on your team who does a lot of blaming, oh, it's his fault the report isn't done. Oh, it's her fault we didn't get this done. They're looking for a reason why. When we're in fight or flight, after we've had that initial flood of hormones go out, we're looking for a reason why. Like, why is this happening to me? So blaming plays a role in that. Some of my clients will just say, Elle, I feel like my brain is broken. I feel broken. I have a lack of focus. I'm not motivated. So if you have someone on your team or you yourself are feeling a lack of motivation, the stress response causes deep depression and you can feel very broken, also burnt out and exhausted. So what triggers you? You can really take some time here, pause this slide if you want. We're going to go through a few things and feel free to pause it at any time and really write down what is triggering you, because that is going to set you free. So when do you tend to overreact? Maybe first thing in the morning because your phone's going off? Or maybe it's evening and you're lonely because you live alone. When you can even live in a family and feel alone, by the way. When do you tend to overreact? What or who makes you overreact? Is it a person? Oftentimes, the people who love us the most or work with us the most, we have the closest relationships with, are the people who are triggering us, who cause us to overreact. Well, we're the ones overreacting, but it will feel like it's their fault. So what or who makes you overreact? What makes you feel annoyed or angry? For years, for me, it was like anything out of place. Dirty socks on the living room floor was one of them. What do you worry about? What do you bite pencils about? Or do you click pens? Click, bite your fingernails, jiggle your leg. What's going on there? What's triggering that? Who or what makes you feel anxious? What are you ashamed of? Could be something from 30 years ago. What's reeling up in your head and you feel ashamed about it? And then what do you argue about? And with all of these things, I want you to deeply ask yourself, is it really worth it? Is it worth triggering the stress response that affects your mind and body for up to 9 hours if you're a male, up to 24 hours if you're a female? Is it really worth it? Is arguing about a household chore with a child really worth it if you're both now going to be under the influence of those stress hormones for hours? When I ask myself that question, the answer is always no, even in the most difficult of situations. The only time I'm supposed to trigger fight or flight is if I'm really under attack. That's happened a couple times in my life. It hasn't happened in a really long time. Let's get to step 3, tools. This is your how-to, the 10-second solution. I'm just going to give you a very little, really one starter tool here. And if you want to learn more, let's get together. So what can you do in a 10-second window from when you first feel one of those A emotions? So angry, annoyed, afraid, anxious, ashamed. What do you argue about? You have 10 seconds before that mechanism in your brain can charge up your heart enough to release the flood of hormones. So what can you do in that 10 seconds? I teach body tools, mind tools, and life design tools. And this tool that I have right for you today is a combination tool, really of all three. I call it the celebration Ferris wheel. Life design tool in that where most of us are in the hamster wheel and we're running and we're exhausted. And I want you to get out of that hamster wheel, get around behind it, and turn it into a beautiful Ferris wheel. You're going to push this Ferris wheel, which is a very silly thing to do. And if you don't like Ferris wheels, then do a 3-point shot. Get your arms up. Put your arms up. So this celebration Ferris wheel combines a few things. It's a body tool because it's a gross motor motion. And it also improves your posture. So if you push up and leave your arms up and don't move your ribs and bring your arms back down, you'll notice that you're in that open heart position. When you're in that open heart position, you're up and over your problem. And you're also signaling to your brain that you are okay. Because if you're not in this kind of posture, if you're coiled up and like this, you're literally telling your nervous system and your brain to be afraid, to be alert. So this beautiful posture actually tricks your brain. It's a neuroscience trick. Smile is too. So smile to me is a mind tool because when you release a little bit of dopamine with a smile, you keep all of this working for you. Dopamine is the neurotransmitter required for your cortex and hippocampus to work well. So your memory will stay intact. So just a small smile, and this is a silly thing to do, so hopefully you smile. Life design, we're celebrating incremental gains, just like Jim Collins talks about in his books. If we don't celebrate incremental gains, teams give up. So when you can celebrate those incremental gains, you'll make much more progress. I want you to celebrate every time you notice a trigger, even if your face turns red or your palms get cold and sweaty. I want you to celebrate because you noticed a trigger. And the next time that trigger comes along, you'll probably stand a good chance at stopping it in the 10 seconds. So celebrate that you're seeing and noticing these triggers. A large motion is one of the only ways an adult can actually open up neural pathways quickly and create a new habit. That's really powerful for you. So that's why I have you do a motion so that you can open up your brain, create new neural pathways, and start to settle in a new habit instead of how you used to overreact. Smiling keeps the dopamine flowing. You're able to think better and more clearly. Posture tells your brain you're going to be fine. You're getting up and over your problems so you can solve it. So these create success for you. You decided to learn this. I encourage you to do the whole course with me. Like if this is pinged for you at all and you're like, wow, this could be really powerful for me, then let's get started. You can go to speakwithelle.com, which is my calendar, and we can have a private conversation. It takes some determination to live pressure-free. I wasn't even doing it at first when I was coaching. I created the method and coaching it to others, and I'm like, I need to do it. So I help you with that so you can stay on this pressure-free path. Then it becomes a daily discipline. It is a lifestyle. I have an executive VP who texted me one day and said, I love this lifestyle in all capital letters because it is so powerful to be out of the stress response and finding your true self. And the last D is deserving. You deserve a beautiful, fulfilling life. I truly believe that. I believe that for every human on this planet. Yes, we're going to have challenges. Yes, we're going to experience some dark situations and tough decisions to make. And yet, bottom line, you deserve to have a full life, a beautiful life. So it's like that heart space again, where we have to go deep in here to allow yourself to open up for that. You can learn more at my website, elleingalls.com, and I encourage you to go there. There's plenty of great stuff in there for you. You can just tour around and decide what's best for you. If you are a coach or a leader and want to be certified in my methods, you can teach it to others. I'd love to have a conversation with you about that too. So it's been great to be on this journey with you, to share all of these leadership tips that have been happening for you. And I hope that you found this of great worth and benefit. And I'd love to know more about you and about how this is making a difference for you. So feel free to email me and get in contact with me, or just go to speakwithelle.com and we can have a conversation. So on that note, have a very pressure-free day. Bye.